guys, thank you so much for coming to my channel. If you have been here before, thank you for coming back. And if this is your first time, thank you for stopping by. My name is Nicole and I am a Scrum Master. And today's topic, I'm just going to walk you guys through on how to create a user story. As a Scrum Master, it's really important that you know how to create a user story because you are actually going to be helping your team to create user stories, right? I've been in a situation where my team members didn't even know how to create user stories, so they reach out to me, ask for my support to show them how to create a user story. So it's important that you know how to create a user story. So should in case your team members need the support, you should be able to guide them and show them all the process on how to go about creating a user story. And also, there have been a lot of times that I'm in my sprint planning meeting or backlog refinement, and I'm sharing my screen, and then the product owner would ask me to maybe add a new user story, right, to our backlog. So I'll go ahead and create that user story. So you don't want to be in a position where you're in a meeting and you get called out to create a story, or if your team members need support, they ask you to help show them how to create a story and you don't even know how to do that. So I'm going to walk you guys through the whole process on how to create a user story. So first, before you actually create a user story, let's first make sure that you are logged into Jira. And once you're logged into Jira, make sure that you are connected to the right project. Okay, so when you log into Jira, just go on project and then make sure that you click on the correct project. If your project doesn't appear here, it means you probably has never logged into Jira before and viewed that particular project. But if you have viewed the project before, once you click on project, you should be able to see the name of your project here. However, if you don't see the name of your project here, if it's your very first time that you're logging into Jira, you want to go to view our project. If you click on view our project over here, you go ahead and search the name of your project, and then it should pop up, and just make sure that you click on the correct project. Okay, again, so when you want to create a story, make sure that you log into Jira, you're on the right project, and once you're ready to create your story, the very first thing that you want to do is right over here where it says create on the top on my screen, like you can see the blue icon, you simply just click on that, right? There are different ways to create stories. So this is actually one of the ways to create a story. You click on that. Once this comes up, over here again, like it says project, this is another way for you to know that you're in the right project. Just make sure that it's pointing to the correct project. If not, just click on the drop down and select the correct project that you want to create a user story on. Issue type, where, like I said, we're trying to create a user story. Just make sure that it's pointing to a user story. Otherwise, if it's not pointing to a user story, click on the drop down. You'll see the different issue types, and just make sure that you're clicking on the right thing, right? So we want to use the story. So by default, when you create a user story, it will normally go into your backlogged. So just put the story into your product backlog. So if you create a story and for whatever reason you are looking for that story and you can't find it, just check in the backlog. Most likely that story will be in the backlog. Every user story should have a summary, right? A short description on, that's pretty much like a high level kind of like description. That's something that describes the user story. So the short description will go right here. Okay, until you're done with your short description. The next thing that you want to do is, some teams, they use components. Component just kind of help you guys to kind of like group your user stories. If you guys are using components, if you click on the drop down, you should find the name of the component that your team is using. If not, that's something you can always actually add later, should in case you don't know what the component is. Once you create the story, you can always add that. Sometimes some user stories might have some type of documentations, like an attachment that your developers might need as they're going to be working on the story. If you do have the attachment, you make sure that it's safe on your browser, and then you just go here and then load the attachment. Otherwise, again, this is something you can always add after you're done creating the story. Most of the time when my team members ask me to create stories that has an attachment, if I don't have the attachment, I'll create a story and then ping them the story number. They'll go ahead and add the attachment if they do have anything else to add. or they can even go ahead and modify the story to the best of the description that they want. Every user story should have a description, right? Description, it's just a story should have a description that specifically explain what the user story is for, what the team is trying to achieve, right? So we're gonna write a short description here. The Okay, and then also once you're done writing your description, you should make sure that you include you should make sure that there's also an acceptance criteria of that user story. On so acceptance criteria should be somewhere around here. If I would just add 1 year. And again, acceptance, just make sure that your user story has an acceptance criteria. You just go ahead and add the acceptance criteria here. Or another thing is when you're creating a user story, normally whoever asks you to create the story should be able to give you all the details that you need for that user story, right? Yes, Scrum Masters can create user story, but again, you're going to need the information on exactly what the user story is about, right? What the team is trying to achieve. So if you really don't know all the detail, I would really recommend you to ask whoever asks you to create the story to give you the info. Most of the time, if it's the product owner will definitely maybe send you the detail on the email or even on Teams chat. Just make sure that you get all the detail on the user story. The reporter normally, right, by default, whoever creates the user story or whoever is creating the user story, it's going to be assigned to them, right? Unless you can change it to whoever you want it to be assigned to. For instance, right now you see that reporter is me, that I'm creating the story, so automatically it's going to assign to me. But if you have a product owner in your team, obviously maybe you want to just have the user story assigned to the product owner as a reporter, should in case someone in the future have maybe specific question in the user story, they can reach out to the product owner for clarity. Okay, link to issues. So again, if you guys are linking your issues, you can go ahead and just choose on the drop down. And then fixed versions. So some teams uses fixed version. It depends. If you guys have a specific targeted release that your team is targeting for, and you guys already know the date that you're going to be releasing, and then you also have already created a fixed version, make sure that you are tying all the stories that are part of that release with that fixed version. It's really important because sometimes it's easier for you or your team members, should in case they want to identify all the stories that are going to be part of that release. One way for you guys to really be able to quickly identify is by just looking at the fixed version. So when you click on the fixed version, it will pull all the stories that are going to be part of that release. So again, a fixed version is something that your tech lead should help your team to create. If you guys do not have the fixed version yet, just make sure that you ask your tech lead if you guys have a targeted release, what the fixed version is, or when are they going to create the fixed versions. And once they do, just make sure that all the stories that are going to be part of that fixed versions for that release, just make sure that is tied to that. Once you know the fixed version name, if you click on the drop down over here, the fixed versions will pop up. If you guys already have it existing in Jira, just make sure you click on the right fixed version and put it there. Again, a fixed version is something you can always add even after you're done creating the story. Assignee, normally I don't assign a user story to anyone once I create it. Unless my team member tells me, hey, create a story for me and assign it to me, then I'll go ahead and create it and assign it to the person that specifically said to do so, right? Otherwise, When I create the story, it automatically goes to the backlog. The story has to go through grooming, right? The team has to refine the story and make sure they got all the details during the backlog refinement, and also during the planning meeting. Then we would identify, or the team members will identify who's going to be able to work on that user story. At that time, they should be able to assign that user story to whoever is going to work on. So when you create the story, you don't have to worry about the assignee just yet, unless they tell you that assign the story to so and so person. All your stories should have a priority. Just make sure once you're creating the story, if you don't know the priority, just ping the person that asked you to create the story, or your product owner. What is the priority of this user story? They will tell you, is it high, medium, or low? If you click on the drop down here, you choose on your priority, and then just select whatever priority tell you. Labels are also really important, right? If you guys have like a lot of like maybe different epics and you guys want to label your stories, it's good for you if you guys have the label already created in Jira, and you know the label that this story is supposed to be part of, just make sure that you click on the drop down and choose the correct label as well. Again, the label is something that you can always still add after you create the story. But if you do know, obviously you want to make sure that you are tying the story to the correct label. Epic link. Every user story should be tied to an epic, right? Epic is a pretty much high level. It's pretty much the bigger story, right? I guess broken down into smaller stories. So, every user story should be tied to an epic. Just make sure that when you're creating the story, ask your product owner. If you don't know the name of that epic, just ping your product owner and ask them for clarity. The story that you asked me to create, do you know which epic I should tie it to? I should link it to. Just make sure that they tell you the epic. It's really important that all of your user stories are tied to a particular epic. And that's some of the responsibilities of Scrum Masters, right? To go on Jira and make sure that all your story has an epic. So if you see that there's a story there that doesn't have an epic, just make sure that you find out what epic that story should be part of. So just ask them. Once they tell you, if you click on the drop down here, you will see all the different epics that are on your board. You just click the epic that it tells you. And once you are done clicking that epic, if you go here and click create, it will create the story. Like I said, it automatically puts it in your backlog. Okay. You can go here and click create. And once you're done, just scroll down in your backlog. The story should be here. So this is a story here that we just created. Another way to create a user story is by cloning an existing story. So let's say that they ask you to create another story that's part of the same epic, almost similar to the previous user story, right? Normally if they ask me to create another story on the same epic, I'll just usually go ahead and clone it. Cloning, again, it just you making a copy, the exact copy of the existing story. Okay. So when you clone it, it kind of pre-populates everything that's already in your other story. You just go ahead now and change the descriptions. So for you to clone a story, you just click over here on the top right hand corner, there's three dots. You click on that, you will see where it says, let me do it again. Over here where it says there's three dots, you click on these three dots and you see where it says clone. If you click on clone, again, this is a old story that we have. We want to create another story. Okay. So the new story, and again, you can see right here it says clone, right? So the new story that we want to create is going to be called, so we can call this Scrum Master Training start date. Once you click clone, it automatically puts that story in the backlog as well. So if you go on a backlog, you scroll down over here, you see the user story. And then you can now open up the user story. So again, if you notice, all the descriptions, everything else from the story we cloned is the same. So normally when my team members ask me to create another story, once I clone the story with the new summary that tells me, I'll just clone it and I'll ping them the story number. I'll just ping them the story number for them to go ahead and update it. Or if they did send me all the detail of the new story that they want me to create, I'll clone it. And once when I'm done cloning it, I'll just go ahead now and update the description based on what they tells me. If you in Jira, everything is kind of like, I guess, editable. If you just click on the box, it let you type. So I'll just go ahead and update the detail of the description here, and obviously update the acceptance criteria as well. And then again, everything that you did before, just go ahead and make sure that you update everything to be specific for that new user story that you just created. Another way to also create a user story is pretty much, you see where it says create issue right here. If you click on where it says create issue right here, it's you can pretty much just type your detail of the new story. Okay, over here. Okay, if you just do that and then you save it, it automatically creates a new story for you right here. And then now you can go ahead and open up the story to fill up the rest of your detail in it. Oh, actually, I opened up the wrong one. If you create a story, oops, I didn't create it. So if you go here and click, okay, now I created a story. All right, so I just created a new user story. Once you're done with that new story, you just go ahead and it's the story right here, Scrum training ended. So you just go ahead now. You can open it up here, just so you can go ahead and edit it. This is the one we just created, actually. So this is the user story that we just created, Scrum training and date. If you notice on this user story, it's not showing any epic. The story is not tied to any epic. So this is something that you have to make sure that you, the Scrum Master, reach out to the product owner to tell you which epic this story needs to be part of, so you can add it. But again, once you're done creating the story, you can just open it up here and just go ahead now and add the detail. Just come here now, add the description of the user story, add the acceptance criteria. On the right hand corner, it is a specific label. Again, you want to add the label, priority, everything. Just go through everything and making sure that everything is filled out correctly. So those are the different ways that you can create user stories. I hope this video was very useful or helpful to you. If you have any other specific question, comment, please do leave me a message below. Again, thank you so much for coming to my channel, and I can't wait to see you guys soon.